So thanks for coming, guys. I just wanted to go over some resumes um, and just give some general advice on what what employers are looking for, what they're not looking for, kind of formatting details, what you should include, what you shouldn't include, that sort of thing. So a little bit about me, as you probably know already, I'm your BCS tutor. Up there. I'm your BCS tutor, and I worked. I actually graduated high school in 2007. It's a long time ago. And I worked kind of odd jobs up until I realized, oh, I wanted to go back to school. So I went back to school in 2010 for mechanical engineering at UBC, graduated in 2015. Then I worked as an engineer for 3 years. And then I joined the BCS program in 2018. And now I'm here. Since I joined the program, I had 2 internships at Amazon, which was really great. And yeah, that's me. So I think I'm gonna dive right into it. If I can. So first, I just want to kind of go over some typical resumes and talk about what's good and what's bad about them. So I pulled up a few examples here. So also, you guys feel free to like unmute yourselves and chime in whenever you want if you have questions, or if you just disagree with me and you have completely differing opinions. All this stuff is my a lot of it's just like my opinions. Um, other people might have different opinions, and other people's opinions might be just as good. But these are my personal ones and what I think resumes should have and should look like. So actually, you know what? I'm gonna start with my resume. Uh, so so this is my resume. Can you guys see this? Okay. Is it too
Yeah,
small? Make it bigger.
Yeah, it's good.
good for me.
Okay. So a few things about what you're looking for in a resume is first off, I'd say not the most important thing, but a pretty important thing is just how it looks overall. Like, is it aesthetically pleasing? Um, like, because that's sort of the first thing people see is just like your the first image that they have of you is just what your resume looks like. So if it's a bit sloppy, if it's not well put together, then they'll kind of have this assumption that you're also sloppy and not well together. So I think it's important to have a nice, neat looking resume, and that could take all shapes and forms. Like there's tons of different types of resumes, but this is mine. So just from top to bottom, obviously your name extremely important, contact info also extremely important. One thing that's very important about contact info is you have to make sure that it's actually parsable. So this is actually text, and I have put this through resume parsers, and it has been able to pull this information out. If you have this as an image, then resume parsers aren't going to be able to parse an image. So your contact information, which is extremely important, probably the most important part of the resume, otherwise they can't contact you back. If it's an image, they're not going to be able to get that information and contact you back about a job. So bad news. So very important to have this as actual text. I have them in text boxes here. I have read that sometimes text boxes can't be parsed. I've also read that I have these in columns here. I've also read that columns sometimes can't be parsed, but in my experience, all the resume parsers that I've put my resume through have been able to be parsed. So that's good. I would advise just trying to put your resume parser through a parser to see if it pulls all the information through. And this could be done as easily as just applying to a job, uploading your resume, and making sure that all the fields actually carry over from your resume into the job application. So my name, what I am. So I'm saying I'm a computer science student. Pretty soon I'll be changing that because I'll be graduating in April. Then I guess I'll say software developer, computer science engineer, something along those lines. And I just have a quick blurb about myself, about just what my interests are, what's like just who I am, just a really quick thing about who I am and what my interests are. Some people have interests at the bottom of the resume. That's totally fine. To be honest, I just found that I had a bit of room here, so I just added a little bit about me. So one of the things that people talk a lot about is order. So I think there's four main aspects of a computer science resume specifically. Generally, they would just be two or three. So skills, work experience, and education. But seeing as we're software developers, we also have projects. So projects are extremely important, just as important as work experience, in my opinion. So the order of these can be subjective. For example, if you have good technical skills and relevant work experience, that should be at the top. Projects could go underneath, and then personally, I put education last because I find that people, like if you're applying to one of these positions, they're going to assume that you have a a degree or you're pursuing a degree. So that's sort of secondary information. What's more important is work experience because that's more so what they're looking for. Say if you don't have any work experience, like you have previous job experience, working at, I don't know, whatever, like a law firm, but you have a couple of really good projects, then you could put your projects above your work experience, as that's more important and relevant to your resume. So here I've got my technical skills. This isn't everything, but just I put all the important ones. When you work with so many technologies, you can have dozens and dozens of these. So I've just listed the most important ones. Directly below, work experience. So you want to have some key pieces of information. You want to have what the job position was, the company you work for. I actually put AWS data feeds because that's the team I was on. And you want to have the dates, obviously, very important. And then of course you have your, generally speaking, you have bullet points, which just kind of tells you a bit about the job, of what you did, some metrics maybe. So for us having projects, what I like to do is, if at all possible, have a have a link to the project if it's like if it's a website or if you've hosted it on GitHub somewhere. Actually, that is a good thing I could do. I could put a hyperlink in here to link this directly to the GitHub repo for this project. I think it's a good idea to have your tech stack right here. I like putting in the middle because then people can see, okay, you did a project. Okay, Swoller, I don't really know what that is, but I see that it's a MERN-stack app and they launched it using Heroku. And then a date of when you did it, just so they can see that you're still relevant. Clearly, I have not done projects in a while. I've just been focusing on internships. So for work experience and projects, an important thing to consider is how you word your experience. So it's very important that you use strong delivery words like created, eliminated, increased, developed. You don't want to say stuff like, I was a part of the team, because that tells you nothing. If at all possible, you want to use metrics. Like for example, when I was a manufacturing engineer, I did cost savings initiatives that exceeded $170,000 a year and reduced cardboard waste by 1 million square feet a year. That's hard metrics, and I can prove that. This could be rewritten in a weaker resume to say I was part of efficiency initiatives to reduce waste. That's great, but that could be as little as like saving $50 a year. But if you actually have metrics, that's really good, really strong, and it shows that you actually accomplished stuff. So I'll point out a couple flaws in my resume just while I was talking about strong bullet points. So this right here, to be honest, it's not super strong. I increased security and reliability for RDS databases and clusters. And like, what does that mean? That's kind of like fluff. I eliminated failure point where the customers could receive incorrectly formatted logs. That's a bit better. It's a bit redundant because I already said that it ensured logs are formatted to customer specifications. But here, this is a good line. I created multiple CLI tools to allow Cucumber tests to be written in 1 minute, down from 5 to 10 minutes. This is really good because you're showing that you created something that is adding value to the team. So now instead of having to write, 6 to 8 tests an hour, now you can do like 50 tests an hour, which is a pretty significant increase. So for education, it's important to have your actual bachelor's there. University, GPA is something you can include if it's good. Notice I didn't include it on this one because it was not good. I had Dean's List for 1 year, but I still had Dean's List, so that counts. But yeah, my GPA was not too great in mechanical engineering. I think it was like a 3.0. So I'm just gonna just completely omit that. But in the BCS program, I've got a 4.0. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm going to include that. So I guess one thing I do have to include on here is I'm actually a teacher's assistant for the BCS program, so I've got to fit that in somewhere. Does anyone have any questions so far or comments? You think my resume sucks? Think it could be better? Anything you like, you don't like? Okay, it's perfect. Awesome. So I'll go over a couple more resume examples. So this one, what I like about it, it's nice and clean. It looks like you have all the relevant information listed. Okay, you've got your skills over here, got your education. That's pretty bite-sized, easy to read. This is a little small. It's kind of in the corner there, but the information's still there. It'll get parsed. Honors, great. Okay, computer science club, blah, blah, blah. One thing I don't really like is how there's too much information on these bullet points. If you look at my bullet points, they're all one line. They have to have a quick thing that you did. I used Java and Cucumber to create a test suite that ensures logs are formatted to customer specifications. It's saying I did this, I used some technology, and this is the impact that it has. So that's one thing you always want to make sure is that show what you did and the impact it had. Why does this keep doing this? Okay. Overall, I think this format could definitely work for a resume. It doesn't have to be super crazy, but it looks good. It's neat and tidy, and yeah. So this one is a pretty basic resume. So this looks like something that if you guys are in first year of BCS and you haven't had too much significant work experience, you might have something like this. It's a bit more spread out just because there's not as much information on it. You've got a project here. You were a mentor in the coder group. You were part of the University of Pittsburgh Club Soccer. That's great. If your education, honors, and skills, you're pretty limited right now, but if you're just starting out, then you're not going to have too much. So I think this would be a good resume for finding a first internship. Although projects are always super important, and you want to get as many of those as possible because that actually shows that you're doing something outside of your required curriculum. This one I'm not a huge fan of for a couple of reasons. First off, I don't like objectives. So objective, I'm looking for an internship, no shit. Like you're giving your resume to an employer, they know you're looking for an internship. Where I can utilize my experience with natural language, blah, 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 blah. It's just a bunch of words. It's just a big blob at the top. It doesn't look very good. It's over your name, which implies that it's more important than your name. I think this should be at the very top. Maybe you could put an objective underneath it. But in general, I don't think objective is really a necessary thing to have. The other thing I don't like about this is there's huge amounts of white space, and then there's big paragraphs right here. And again, you have a big chunk of white space right here. You probably could have fit all those in 2 lines, but you're just wasting space for the sake of wasting space, it seems like. So let's see what he has here. Worked 20 hours a week in the biggest computer lab on campus to troubleshoot issues that students had with network connectivity, printers, and related technology. So this is an example of something that seems like it is an accurate description of the job, but it doesn't really have much impact. So you work 20 hours a week, okay, sure. In the biggest computer lab on campus, again, doesn't seem too relevant. To troubleshoot issues, okay, that's good. We're showing that we're actually doing something. But then that's it. So you basically said, I troubleshot issues. That's basically what that entire thing is saying, and it's in the form of an entire paragraph. So it doesn't have that impact. You have the descriptive, like the strong word of I troubleshot issues, but you're not saying the impact that we had. So did you actually solve any of these issues? Did you follow up with people? Did you make improvements? Are there any metrics that can show that you actually made an impact? I think it's pretty lacking there. Streamline the process of responding to issues by implementing a ticketing system and grouping similar issues together to reduce resources and time to complete inbound requests. This is a lot better. It doesn't have metrics, which can be really helpful, but that is a lot better. So, and I think you could flesh these out as well. I think just by kind of thinking about anything you've used. I mean, he doesn't have JavaScript here, but it's JavaScript Angular. Okay, I would split that up because HTML, CSS, JavaScript should always go together, and then Angular is actually a bit of a separate technology. It's a library for JavaScript. Personally, I would put Angular completely separate than JavaScript because they are two fairly discrete entities. Relevant courses. So this is something people talk a lot about. I personally don't think it's really necessary to list all your courses because if you're in a program, people are going to assume that you're taking these courses. Maybe if they're like I'm taking CompSci 340 right now, which is a machine learning course. If I'm applying for a machine learning job, then maybe that's something I would include. But data structures, algorithm design, database management, these are all software design methodology. These are all really standard courses. I think most people would assume that you have these already. If you have the space for it, maybe it's not a bad thing to put on. But if there's more important things, then you could definitely take that out and put something else in. This is the exact same as the first one. This is the exact same as the first one. Okay. So I pulled up a resume that I found that somebody used to get a job at Google. And as you can see, very basic. It doesn't it doesn't have any fancy images. Doesn't have any like for this one. This is a bit small, but oh my Jesus. Okay. So this has like this is getting a bit jumbled. You can see that they have communication 4 out of 5, leadership 3 out of 5. I think this is a really weird metric to have, and it doesn't really accurately represent anything. Collaboration 5 out of 5. I don't know what that means. Data structures 4 out of 5. Programming logic 5 out of 5. That implies that you are the absolute. You know everything about programming logic. There's nothing left to learn. I don't think anybody and they're saying that they're 5 out of 5 on SQL, C Sharp, Python, and Java. Maybe if you're a senior engineer, you can claim this, but as an intern, you should not be claiming that you are 100% proficient with Python and Java. There's always more to learn. Personally, I would remove all these. It's kind of weird. And I would just, you could just keep the skills on there. And yeah, don't like that one. So this one, you can see, let's see their skills section. Yeah, so okay, that's not the languages I was looking for. Here we go, technical skills. Machine learning, Python with NumPy, Pandas, Ruby, Spark, great. SQL, MATLAB, Ruby on Rails, Java, great. JavaScript, HTML, CSS, LaTeX, great. This is all really good stuff. It's just, it's not the most pretty looking resume. I mean, one of the pretty big error personally is that they split this up over 2 pages, but it got him a job at Google. So it conveys all the information quickly and effectively. And it looks pretty good. I was responsible for designing and implementing a specific feature within Microsoft Dynamics CRM with developers and other PMs. Probably can't get into too many more details on this. I had that experience with Amazon where I had to sign non-disclosure agreements. Conducted statistical analysis, deeper understanding of existing context effects on user management. Great. Doesn't have any metrics, but you can't always get them. Something I don't like is responsible for acquiring more than 120. Actually, that's a bit better. You do have some metrics there. You gain 120 members into the club. I'll take that one back. Organized meetups. You could flesh this out a bit more. Like organize the meetups. That doesn't really tell you too much. Formed a team of several students to work on a machine learning competition at Kaggle. This is actually a really good example of how you think you're explaining something really well, but you're actually not conveying too much information. So you formed a team of several students. That's great. You worked on a machine learning competition. What was this competition? What was the goal? How did you place? What did you create? Like it tells you basically nothing about it. So I really want to stress going over your resume and reading each line over and over again, and make sure that you're actually conveying good information to people. Because this might look like off the cuff. It might look like you're conveying a lot of information, but really I don't think it is conveying too much information. But again, this resume got a guy a job at Google. So, do I have one more? No, that's 340 lectures. So yeah, overall, I think for computer science resumes, it doesn't have to be super fancy. I think people appreciate just the nature of our industry. I think people appreciate easy to read information that conveys
啊，
impact of what you
我不
did.
知道，他也没说，
What?
就9个人在。
What? Okay. So, like I was saying, computer science resumes for us in our industry, what we want is easy to read information that conveys an impact of what you did, preferably with metrics if you can. Metrics being, I formed 120 members. That's great. I reduced wait time by 30%. That's great. If you can actually prove with metrics that you've done something, it's so much more impactful than just saying I formed a team, which could basically mean anything. So I have this resume here that I doctored bits. A student sent me this about a week ago asking for advice on it, which actually prompted me to do this workshop. So a few things that you, does anybody have any comments about this resume just by looking at it overall? Personally, I think it's a pretty good looking resume. It's, it looks like it has a lot of good information. It's got a bunch of bullet points. They have the languages they used. They got the dates. They have a good amount of education, good amount of professional background, additional skills. I think all this stuff looks really good. So just from an initial view, I think it looks really good. So let's start from the top and go to the bottom. So name, computer science major, 4th year, great. Implies that you're graduating in May. Links for Stack Overflow, LinkedIn, GitHub, phone number, email, great. And this is all in plain English, so it can, so it can be parsed with a resume parser. So now we have preferred length of internship, 24 weeks. I don't like this just for the reason that this kind of seems like it's your general resume. That's actually a point I just thought of. I meant to say earlier. I like, when I save my resumes, I like to save, even if it's the exact same resume, I like to save it as Brent Hanover 2020 summer internship Amazon resume. Because if they end up pulling that file and they can see like, oh, look, it's actually his Amazon resume. It's not just his generic resume. Maybe it doesn't make too much of a difference, but it's something I've always done and I think is a good idea. So here, this tells me that this is a generic resume because it just says preferred length of internship, 24 weeks. So the jobs you're applying at, they'll have how long the internship is. So if you want a 24-week internship, then you should be applying for 24-week internships. Maybe there's special cases that could change, but this would tell me that that this person just threw their generic resume into the void. So I would remove that. Technical skills. So she put her
quick question.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that makes sense if you're applying to an actual internship, but what if you're just cold emailing somebody and you're like, well, maybe so-and-so that I know through my network who works at XYZ company might be able to help me score something that's off the record out of a normal internship channel for 24 weeks.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, I think you could work in that case. But if you do know that what company they're working for, you could at least tailor it to that company a bit.
Right.
But yeah, but
that
if you just give your resume to like here, take my resume, Mr. Recruiter Man. Yeah, then I think you'd be right.
Okay, thank you.
But if you're applying specifically to jobs, I would tailor each one to each position that you're applying for. So she has technical skills first. That's great. I have the same thing. I think that's a good idea. I think the formatting could use a little work just because this one has a good amount of white space and then this one flows over to the next line. Like maybe you could, so you have libraries, frameworks, IDEs, and other. IDEs isn't really something you have to include. People assume that you're going to use an IDE, but if you have room, sure, why not? But if you have libraries, frameworks, IDEs, and other, and then you have like two lines of work, maybe you could split this up into libraries, frameworks, and then IDEs and other, and just make it into a bit more readable chunk. Just because reading a big amounts all at once can be a little daunting. So projects, let's see this. So she has projects before professional background, which I wouldn't do, but oh, I removed the job descriptions. But the job descriptions are in the legal field, so they're not actually about computer science. So I think it makes sense for her to have it at the bottom and have the projects first, showing her that she doesn't have any professional experience in computer science field, but she does have a lot, like a lot. Like, look at this, 5 projects. That's good. She has a lot of experience doing projects and working on her own to create stuff. She has a website which she linked. I'm not going to go to it because I would expose who she is. But if you go to the website, she made the website herself. It has a list of her projects, some stuff about her. I think that's a really good idea, even just to show that you have the motivation to be creating stuff on your own, and that you know how to do at least some basic web development. I think that's a really good idea to have sort of an online resume. So let's go over project. Creating a custom querying engine for a course navigator using asynchronous programming promises and RESTful API. Query features include data cleaning and conversion. Okay, I think there's a little bit of an error here because this is 2 bullet points in one. So this should be something like that. And also creating is, oh, I see, it's ongoing. Okay, never mind. So usually I would say created just because it's in the past, but it is ongoing, so that's okay. Extended on a Gatsby started to create responsive portfolio website using comma, using React styled components for styling, querying data. See, this is another case where you have a bit of a run-on sentence. So you have this comma which shouldn't be here, so that's poor grammar. And then this is just a run-on sentence because you've added another independent clause just tacked on with a comma to the end of your sentence. So again, this should be something like that. This doesn't appear to be ongoing, so this should be queried data using jQuery. And then maybe you could say a little bit more about it. Designed and created a desktop application for users to practice vocabulary using UML class diagrams for class structure diagram and applying UBC principles. And there's too many words. Too many words. Bullet points are meant to be short, bite-sized pieces of information that quickly relay what you did and how it impacted something. So this is getting to be a bit much. Like my eyes would kind of glaze over if I was reading this as an employer. Again, this should be a separate bullet point. This should be ensured because it was in the past. Ensured persistence of data using JSON, which doesn't really make sense. How do you persist data just using JSON? What's your backend? Like that's I don't really understand how the data is being persisted just using JSON. JSON is the format of the data. So this is a bit of an error for me, which implies that she doesn't really know what she's talking about. And again, I don't mean to be tearing this resume apart. This is just what I think I would like if I was an employer. This is how I'd be reading it, and this would be the information that's being conveyed to me. Also got her permission, so it's okay. Used Google Maps API to find distance and walking time to get different locations on campus based on certain activities that the user could choose from. This is a lot better. It's a bit long. But I think it conveys what you did. It doesn't convey the impact that you had. So maybe the impact was that the user could, I don't know, query some local eateries in a list and then pick from them when they wanted. I don't know, like a favorites list for restaurants. Maybe it's something like that. So it's not really explaining what exactly happened here. Oh, find distance and walking time to get to different locations on campus based on certain activities the user would choose on. Okay, so it does say. So you got the walking time to get to different locations. It still just seems like a bit of a run-on. I could end it, I think if you ended it right there, that would be a lot more impactful. Use Google Maps API to find distance and walking time to get to different locations on campus. Use Google Maps API to find distance and walking time between various locations on campus. I think that makes a bit more sense. Created a game with JavaScript that the users can play. This is a good example of, what does that mean? What did you do? So stuff like this, I would definitely work on fleshing it out. For detailed descriptions of my skills and course, please look at my website. Sure. Although this website you could have at the very top as your personal website. I think that would be very, very clear as to what that is. Diploma of Law. Another bit of a grammar issue is equivalent. I would just say equivalent to a bachelor's and master's degree. This is from the University of Vienna, so they do kind of translate weirdly. So that's an important thing to have. But I think having the same what's the word? Same tense. Sure, let's call it that. Instead of is equivalent, I think equivalent makes a lot more sense. And you'll see the cardinal sin of all resumes, which shows that you do not have attention to detail, is a spelling error. That is absolutely unforgivable. It's not acoustic, it's acoustic. If I saw a spelling error, I would immediately assume that they do not, the candidate does not take time to look over details. And this is extremely important. In fact, at my last internship, I was getting hammered because I was submitting my code reviews without looking at the details well enough, and my boss was getting mad at me. So, important stuff. Work experience, blah blah blah. Not super relevant. I don't like this piece of work experience because it doesn't actually have any bullet points. If you're just saying you worked somewhere but you can't even talk about it, I don't even think it would be worth putting on there. Whoop! Oh my god. Like for example, I've worked at tons of different jobs. I worked at a place called Weedman, I've worked at a place called Boston Pizza, I've worked at the Shack, I've worked at the Academic, but I don't include them because they're not really too relevant to what I'm looking for. Conference planning, scouts, mentoring, great. Climate change mitigation, adaptation, acoustic guitar, books, film. Is that film photography or film comma photography? I think that's supposed to be a film comma photography. Again, something that if it makes you kind of do a double take and it's a bit hard to read, something that you're probably going to want to watch out for. And that's why peer reviews are so important, because a lot of times people will catch things that you haven't been able to catch. Does anyone have any comments about what I've been talking about here, or any disagreements? I am always open to people disagreeing with me.
Yeah, I have a question. So I'm a first-year BCS student with 0 project experience, 0 computer science-related work experience, but I've got a pretty decent amount of work experience.
Okay.
How do you display your work experience that's non-CS related so that so I work as a management consultant, and I still do on a full-time basis while doing BCS.
Sorry, a what consultant?
A management consultant.
Oh, okay.
I don't do any. How do I display it so that the employer sees value in the work I'm doing if it's not littered with JavaScript, Node, X, and 8 other languages?
Okay, that's a great question. So I had sort of the same thing. I worked as a manufacturing engineer, which has nothing to do with computer science. But what I included on here, lead engineer for new product introduction to the factory, making up more than 25% of yearly sales. As a management consultant, you can, to be honest, I don't really know what a management consultant does, but let's just assume I do. So let's say you led teams for workshops. So you can say, I led 4 to 12 person training sessions in lean manufacturing, leading to factory Six Sigma certification, which is true. And then this one is definitely more applicable, because I think cost saving initiatives has a lot to do with computer science. Like, you always want to find the most optimal solution. But as a management consultant, I think a line like this would be great. And just because it doesn't have anything to do with computer science doesn't mean you should include it. I was saying you should exclude this one just because it's the 4th one and there's no bullet points. So if you can't find any bullet points, then exclude it. But what exactly do you do as a management consultant?
Honestly, it's a mixed bag of everything. It could be from revenue optimization and growth strategies to
That's great.
Cost efficiencies and just
That's
cutting
cool.
costs across a company.
That's great. That's really good stuff. I think I probably only got the job at Amazon because I was an engineer before. Because like you, I had next to no projects. I only had Tetris at that time. I just created Tetris in Java, but I had worked as a manufacturing engineer. I also, at that time, I included I worked at a lab at UBC for 2 years, so I had that on as well, which again, had nothing to do with computer science, but just showing that you're a working professional and you're going to be more mature and you have more life experience than a second year student, which you might only have worked at McDonald's or something up until that point. I think that's massively helpful. So if you're doing stuff like optimizing revenue strategies and leading workshops, I think that's super useful stuff. Showing that you have really good that you have life experience, that you know how to lead teams, you know how to work in a workplace. So yeah, try to like I was saying before, it might not be too relevant to computer science specifically, but if you can show that you did something and then show the impact that it had, I think that'll be really useful.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah,
Brent.
Long, what's up? I don't know how to lower hands on Zoom, so just do it for me. Thanks.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, one second. I'm just gonna grab some water. Okay, shoot. What's up?
Who should go first?
Faye? Long? I think you're the only
Oh,
person.
hi, Brett. Yeah, hi everyone. It's not quite a question about resume itself. I'm just curious. It's about you. So for your first year at BCS, from your resume, it seems like were you working full time while studying? Because from your resume, as you are as a manufacturing engineer, it seems like you're working from 2015 to 2019, but you started BCS program in 2018. So for your first year at BCS, were you working full time while studying?
Yes, excellent observation. It was terrible, and I would not recommend it to anybody. I was working full time as a manufacturing engineer in Langley, and then I would drive directly to school. Luckily, I was able to take 110 online, but I would drive directly to school, spend 3 hours in lecture, and then drive home, do all my homework, wake up, go to work, go to school, do my homework, wake up. It was terrible, but I got through it, and now I'm just in class. Yeah, that was extremely difficult. Probably the most difficult thing I've done in my entire life.
So how many courses did you take for the first 2 terms?
I took 110 and 121 in first term. Second term, I took English 301, Stat 200, and Comp Sci 210. So yeah, like 8 to 10 credits type of thing, while working 40 hours a week. It was a nightmare.
Okay, cool.
I'm just realizing that there's actually more people with their hands up. Let me figure this out.
Thanks.
Okay, Jeremy. I don't know what the order is, but let's go with Jeremy.
Hey, Brett, just wanted to get your perspective. I'm sorry if I missed it. On 1-page versus 2-page resumes, it seems like your preference is 1 page, but why might that be? And is 2 like a faux pas, or is that also acceptable?
That's what you got. That's better. I would urge you guys to make a 1-page resume. If you are a working professional and you have a ton of work experience, there's nothing wrong with 2 pages, but I don't think any of us have enough work experience, enough project experience that would warrant having a 2-page resume. That being said, if you do and you find that you absolutely cannot fit all your information on 1 page and it's all extremely important information, then by all means. But for us as students, I don't think we have enough experience. Like if I can fit in being an engineer, a couple projects and 2 internships and my education all on 1 page, then I think you guys can do too. And this is actually a good example, a good lesson in being succinct, as in being concise and to the point, which is also very important. Like in emails, I remember I would send like 3-paragraph emails. Nobody would read them. I would write a 3-paragraph email, and then I would condense it into like 2 lines, maybe 3 lines. Then people would actually read it. I think it's the same thing for resumes. I like to have succinct, just one-line sentences and bullet points, because that shows that you can then quickly and easily communicate points without just using a bunch of words that are just fluff. So
All right, thank you.
yeah.
Super helpful.
And generally, take it to one page. Pretty good rule, unless you're like a senior engineer. Jason?
Hey, thanks, Ben. I just have a question following up with, I think it was Jared. So basically, does having background experience in a certain industry or a specific sector actually help in applying to jobs? So just as an example, for example, a pitch book, which helps a lot of investment bankers
Sorry,
do
what?
M&A.
What did you say?
Sorry.
What book?
Pitch book, like it's a firm that helps a certain industry, right? With let's say M&A transactions. Does having, I know that it helps if you're a product manager to have relevant understanding of what the client wants, what the customer wants, right? But does it help as an engineer to have that background experience or that sector experience and to show that in your resume?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any experience is bad experience. It's maybe like maybe don't put that you were a dishwasher on your resume. Like that's like, okay, sure, whatever. That's just nothing. McDonald's, okay, maybe you could leave it off. But if you're doing something like what you're just describing, I think that's absolutely useful information. It shows that you know how to deal with coworkers. It shows that you can even do something as easy as emailing people. Like people really suck at emailing sometimes. It shows that you can like maybe you're talking to clients. That's extremely helpful. A lot of people are really terrible at talking to clients. Yeah, and in general, it just shows that you're more mature. You're not just fresh off the boat, and you and that's is that the right phrase? Fresh off the whatever. It's showing that you're not just an extremely new green person, and that you actually have some life experience, and they're not going to have to teach you absolutely everything from scratch.
But yeah, thanks for that, by the way. But I guess my question was more towards, you know, as a product manager, you deal with understanding what the client wants, like what the customers want, right?
Oh,
does having that understanding and showing that product manager, yeah, does having that understanding help when you apply to certain jobs? Let's say you understand what the client wants from, you know, like based on what the product the company makes, right?
Yeah.
Does having that understanding and showing that in your resume help in a software engineer role?
Absolutely. I'd say, like, you know, most of the job isn't even coding. It's okay. There's a good amount of coding. There's a lot of debugging, but the most important thing is going to be laying out the requirements for a project and making sure that you're actually working on the correct thing. Like you could be an absolute genius, but if you don't have good communication skills, and if you can't communicate, like if you can't take what the customer is asking for and turn it into a product, if you're getting confused in the middle there, then you're going to have a bad time because you're going to have to keep redoing work because it's not what the customer wanted. But if, as a product manager, you have experience with talking to clients, building their recommendations, tempering expectations, and all that sorts of things, I think that's massively helpful. And besides, maybe let's say as an intern, you're just going to be told this is what you have to do, go and do it. Okay, sure, but they're going to look at that resume and say, hey, this is a person who has experience as a product manager. Maybe this is a person that could be a product manager at our company, or a software manager, or a person that's going to show a lot more leadership skills in the future. So I think that's extremely good to have.
Thanks. Thanks, Ben.
Is there anyone else with a hand up? I'm sorry, I'm not used to the Zoom interface now. Okay, Michael, what's up?
Hi, Brent. I have a question about the criteria of choosing the languages that we learn on the resume. I did some personal projects before, like for example, I used the Python and the Flags, but I'm not knowing the library, the framework, like inside out. Would that be okay if I put the framework or the language on the resume? Or let's say we took 210 and we did some project, done some programming with Java. Would that be good enough for us to put those languages on our resume?
Yeah, I think so. As long as it's not just something that you used one time and you kind of suck with, but you know, let's just throw it on there for the sake of throwing it on there. No, I think that if you can at least answer some questions with it, if you be able to like do a lead code question with it, then by all means. People understand that you're not going to be perfect, and you're not going to know absolutely everything as an intern. So it's kind of assumed that you have a restricted knowledge of something. I think what could back it up is that if you listen to one of your skills, but then also have it in your projects. So see, I have Java here, but then I also have Java here, and I also have Java here. So if it's, you know, now I'm showing that I've actually used it in multiple instances. Notice I don't have Python on here. I have done projects in Python, but I wouldn't feel comfortable answering questions in Python, so I don't put Python on my resume. I think it would be safe to assume that if you have something on your resume, you should be ready to answer questions about it. So if you feel comfortable to answer questions about it, then absolutely put them on your resume. But if you couldn't answer like relatively basic questions, then I would leave it off, because then if they ask you about it, you're just gonna look dumb. Does that answer your question?
I see that. That makes sense. Thank you.
I think that's everybody. Great. So does anybody have any last questions, comments, anything? You can just go ahead and blurt it out. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I had a question. Another question. So there was the one resume that looked like aesthetically displeasing, and the individual got a job at Google.
Yeah.
To what extent do you think they got the job at Google because they worked 2 internships at Microsoft already and had an additional software engineering project that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I included this one just to show that you don't need a super flashy resume. Like the bigger focus should be on your content, and absolutely his content is really good. You know, data science intern at Microsoft, founded the data science club, program managing intern at Microsoft. Yeah, all his stuff is really good. Way better than the ones I was showing you before. So yeah, the content is what's going to get you the job, but also at the same time, if it is about your presentation, and they can't see you, they can only see your resume. So if you have a sloppy resume, they're going to assume you're sloppy, and you still might get the job if you have absolutely outstanding credentials. But I think it's just, if you have a bunch of, just imagine this as you have an array, and they're all a bunch of different values. One represents cleanness, one represents skills, one represents this. And people are going to take all of your different things into consideration, and how your resume looks is just one of them. So, this guy, he might get like a 3 out of 10 for the presentation of his resume, but he has a 10 out of 10 for experience. This one, maybe I have a 6 out of 10 for work experience, but I have like an 8 out of 10 for presentation. So it's just overall, I think it's better to have like a prettier looking resume, just because it stands out. It's more readable. It's easy to read. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is your experience. And besides, do you guys know what a resume is for? It's not to get you a job. It's to get you an interview. So once you have the interview, your resume doesn't even matter anymore. Then it's all up to you. It's like your dating profile. Once they swiped right, then it's all up to you.
Yeah, thank you. That was good.
So if there's nothing else, I wanted to. Oh, Michael, what's up?
Oh, sorry, I just raised my hand, but I'm not sure you spotted.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just have a question about the projects you put on your resume.
Sure.
So, like, what kind of project you should put on your resume? For example, I might make a bunch of simple games, like the ping pong game using JavaScript, something like that. Do you think it's good enough to be put on your resume, or I should make something more complicated?
No, absolutely. That's one of those things where you don't need a lot of details. So for a time, I had a few different projects like that. Like I made Pong, I made Flappy Bird, I made Tetris. So I just kept Tetris on here because it was definitely the most impressive one. But yeah, you could have something even as, God damn it, you could have something like this. You could just say Pong, I made it with Java Swing JUnit, and I did in April. You don't need a whole bunch of details in something as simple as Pong. But yeah, like you could have, let's say you have your 2 projects that you need some explanation on, and then you have like 3 small projects which you just list really quickly to show that you've done more than just these couple of projects. I think that's great.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you.
I hate formatting in Word. Also for formatting, always make your resume into PDF format before you send it in. Extremely important, because if you have it in Word and they open it in Word, their version of Word could be different, so it's gonna look different on their computer. Or you guys could use LaTeX. You can actually Google LaTeX resumes. It'll give you a bunch of really pretty looking stuff. I personally don't, just because I already had it in Word. But LaTeX is a really good resource to use. You can make everything just exactly where you want it, make it look really pretty. It'll pass the resume parsers, so that's a good option as well. Michael, you got a question? I put your hand down, I think.
Oh, I thought I already put it down.
Oh, maybe I didn't. Maybe I missed you. Okay, Khalid.
Yeah, hi, Brent. Thank you for hosting this. I just wanted to ask you, I'm not sure if I missed it in the first 30 minutes, but could you elaborate on maybe the interview process for Amazon, or what you did to prepare, at least, if you had any tips?
Yeah, so I'm actually not going to go over that in this one. This is just specifically resume, but I will be hosting a workshop in the future that's going to be dealing just with interviews. Maybe not next week because it's midterms. I'm going to host some review sessions, but maybe the week after that, I'm going to host a workshop for interview prep and what they're looking for.
Okay. And just a quick question on the projects. How much detail do they expect you to go into? I mean, are they going to actually look at your code at one point or ask you to pull it up?
Honestly, I doubt it. If you have a nice, pretty front end for it, I think they'll click on it. As long as they can click on it and instantly get it, absolutely. But Tetris, they're not going to pull my repo and open it up. And kind of honestly, I hope I don't. I put a bunch of memes in it. So, like you can push a button and then Shrek starts yelling, and it's a whole thing. So maybe they shouldn't pull it. But no, I don't think they're going to pull a Java repo to see what your code looks like. But if you have a website, like, why is this? It's not a file, it's a website. I'm not sure if this is hosted anymore, but let's see if it is. I think Heroku might. It's been over a year.
Take a second. Maybe.
But yeah, if you've made a website, absolutely include your website. Put the link in so they can click on it and look at. But you can always put your GitHub repo as a link to your project. Chances are they're not going to look at it, but at least it's there if they do want to.
Okay. And they might ask you like brief details, general details.
Oh, definitely. They'll ask you questions about it for sure.
Yeah.
But they probably won't. Like actually go into the nitty gritty.
Open up under the hood. Okay.
Yeah, and I hope not, because I was terrible at Java a year and a half ago. Okay, Jared.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of websites, do you think it's worth the effort of making your own website for the purpose of your kind of online resume, or is using like an easy website template fair game?
Hey, it's still open. I think making your own website will be a really good idea, just to show them that you have the initiative to actually create something. I think creating your own website would be better than using a template, but I think making a template would still be good. It would be better than not having a website. So yeah, not having a website, template website, and then actually creating your own website would be the best.
Right. Okay.
Because there's tons of front end development jobs out there, and frankly, like UBC teaches us absolutely nothing about web development at all. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It loaded up. This is the website I made. I'm not sure if our database is still up, because it was hey, it is. Look at that. So you can see all the trainers that are these different things. You can like, oh look, it's me. You can click on me, and then you can. My name is Joe Schmo. He sucks. Don't forget him. Leave me a 2-star rating. And it doesn't work. Fantastic. Of course. So yeah, this is the website I made. It was just a quick little thing. Has like personal trainers, gyms you can go to, and then you can like book a trainer. You can search by like say I want a gym that has yoga in it, or maybe I just want to do some yoga, so you can see all the yoga studios. So I linked in the Google Maps API, but it charges you money, so I unlinked it because I don't want that to be abused. Yeah, that was my little my project. So this is a great little thing because people can actually click on it. They can go through and they can actually see what you've created, as opposed to something like a Java project where it's more difficult because you got to pull the repo, pull it, and load it into IntelliJ, blah blah blah. So if you guys are looking for projects to make, I think making a website would be a really good thing to do. You could do it in React. React is pretty easy, relatively speaking. And yeah, then you can actually start getting into the web development jobs. Yeah, Khalid?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Did you scrape all the info like automatically?
No, this is that would be the next step for sure. But no, we manually inputted all these.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. And clearly I suck at CSS because this is supposed to be over there. CSS is hard, man. Okay, I thought what we could do, how many of you guys, maybe, I don't know, raise your hand if you'd be interested in actually doing some like review of your own resume. So we have one person, two people. It's bigger. There we go. Okay, well that's a little less interest. So, okay, 3 people. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll do. Just give me a second. I think I'm going to stop the recording now because now we've gone over all the details. So what I can do, I'm going to find. I have a Google Doc somewhere where I uploaded. Like my friends and I, we uploaded our resumes so we could do some resume review. I'll try to find that. My Google Drive was acting up before, but maybe you can access it now. Hey, there we go. Okay. Where is it?
Hey, Brent, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Where can we find the record of this workshop?
I think, I'm not too sure. I think I'm going to make a YouTube channel.
Okay.
That was the best thing I could think of. Then, like, you know, in the future years, people will be able to access it for all time, whatever. I'll probably make a BCS YouTube channel if it's not already created.
Yeah, cool. That'd be great.
Okay, I'm gonna make a new folder. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm just creating a couple things. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm making a Google Drive folder, and I am trying to find my resume. Where is my resume? Ah, here we go. Okay. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll post the link. Link. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I added Wolfman as a trainer in my website. I thought it was funny. He was my professor for that class. And yeah, I am recording it. Oh, that was an hour ago. Okay, so I created a Google Drive. So you guys can go ahead. I uploaded mine already. So you guys can go ahead and if you go to resume review, create a folder with your own name, and then upload your resume, and then also create a document where people can make comments on it. And then we can go through each other's resumes and leave comments for them in each document. How do you make a new? Yes. Okay, yeah, so if you take a look at the folder I made, that's kind of the idea. So I have my resume, and then I have comments for me. Also, you guys don't need to leave comments for me because that's actually an old resume. Like I know I have to make a bunch of changes on it, so don't bother with me. But you guys can upload your resumes, and we can take a look at each other's and go through them. But if you guys aren't interested in that, then thank you very much for coming. And yeah, it's nice to see a decent amount of people come out. And I'll post the link if you guys ever want to go back to it. Yeah, like I said, probably a YouTube channel, but maybe BCS already has a medium for that, so I'll look into it.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
No problem.